Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I am Ann Chance, and I am representing the League of Women Voters. And on behalf of UL and the League of Women Voters, we are glad to have you here. The League is a nonpartisan and nonprofit organization. It does not endorse or support candidates or parties. Since 1920, the League of Women Voters has worked to educate and inform voters. Membership is open to all men and women over the age of 18. The Lafayette League encourages informed and active participation in our government. Our members work to increase understanding of public policy issues and to inform public policy and influence it through education and advocacy. The League is honored to co-sponsor this event with ULL and to have as our moderator Ms. Sally Donlin, an Assistant Dean in the College of Liberal Arts. Please join me in welcoming Sally. Thank you. Good luck.
We're just a little close up here. And I will remind the candidates you might want to pick up the microphone and speak into it when you provide your responses. Good evening. Welcome to the Candidate Forum at ULL. Tonight we're offering the public a glimpse of the candidates for Lafayette City Parish Council District 7 and 8. We're delighted to have the candidates here for tonight's forum. Nanette Cook and Bobby Richard in District 7, and Liz Hebert, Gerald Judice, and Carol Ross in District 8. First, please take this time to silence your cell phones for the duration of the forum. Next, the format. The questions will be new to the candidates. They have not received them in advance. The questions are designed to give candidates an opportunity to express their opinions and positions on issues relevant to voters. Our process tonight will be to give each candidate 1 minute to introduce themselves in alphabetical order by district. We'll give them 2 minutes for closing remarks. In between the intro and the closing, we'll pose questions that all candidates will answer and several questions that may be district specific. Candidates are asked not to address each other directly. This is a forum and not a debate. Answers will be limited to 1 minute each, strictly and cheerfully enforced by our timekeeper, Richard Cusimano. He will give candidates a 30-second warning and stop them with a warning signal if they go over their allotted time of 1 minute. Now, let's hear from our candidates. You are sharing a microphone, so be sure you pull it close to you and speak directly into the mic when it's your turn. Please introduce yourselves, beginning with Nanette Cook.
Of course. All right, hello. Can you hear me? Yes? All right, my name is Nanette Cook, and I am running for District 7, the District 7 seat. I am from Lafayette. I've been here for 56 plus years. I graduated from Fatima High School here. I have been teaching for the last 33 years. I'm actually teaching at the other school, not Fatima, but Cathedral. I didn't tell them that I went to Fatima when I first got hired, of course. But I am very much in love of Lafayette. I am excited to be running for this position. I am a pro-life, pro-business, conservative Republican, and I am excited about keeping this city prosperous and keeping it growing for all our young people in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Mr. Richard.
Well, 10,000 thanks to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this event. This is the first time I actually get to sit right by my opponent, so I'm kind of excited about that. And of course, I'm glad that the League of Women Voters is doing this because we all know that the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world, right? So grateful to be here. Listen, I was raised in a single-parent home by my mom. My dad passed away when I was 5 years old. And this lady instilled all the value system, the work ethic, and even a perspective of life. You know, how do I interact in this thing that we call life? A world view in my life. And you know, my mom was the kind of person that she never met a stranger that she didn't know, and she never met someone who was in need that she wasn't willing to give the shirt off her back to. So my entire adult life has been spent or marked by my mom. From the time that I spent in the Marine Corps, working as a police officer here in Lafayette, or even as a minister of the gospel for the last 21 years, last 16 years as a pastor at Hope Alive. My whole life has been spent in serving my community, and I hope to continue to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. Ms. Hebert.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Liz Webb Hebert. I am originally from Lafayette, Louisiana. I went to Turlings Catholic, and then I went up to Northwestern in Natchitoches, moved right back on down to Lafayette, where I now work at the Cajun Dome and Convention Center, where I'm the Convention Center sales manager. Love my job. I am a newlywed, married to Aaron Hebert, whose birthday is Wednesday, and he will kill me for saying that. I'm the proud mother of 2 dogs, Lady and Batman, and I'm passionate, I'm excited, and I'm ready to get started. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ms. Hebert. Mr. Judice.
Hi, I'm Gerald Judice, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters as well as the UL College of Liberal Arts for putting on this event tonight. I'm a lifelong resident of Lafayette, and I'm married to the former Linda Thibodeau, who's also a teacher at Cathedral Elementary. I have 3 great children, Zachary, his wife Lauren Barrio, my daughters Charlene and Abby. They all graduates of STM as well as UL here at UL. I also have 1 granddaughter, Spencer Elizabeth, who just turned 2 and will be a future graduate of St. Mary's Daycare pretty soon. I come from a large family. My dad was one of 17 children who almost all settled here and raised their families here. I'm the last of 8 children. We have very deep roots in this community, and I also graduated from Our Lady of Fatima High School when it was a high school, and I graduated here at UL. It was USL back then. I graduated with a degree in finance. I have run our small family business, Judy's Inn, for the last 30 plus years. I also own and operate a theater in Opelousas, the St. Landry Cinema.
Thank you, Mr. Judice. Ms. Ross.
Thank you, Sally. I, too, am very grateful to the League. This is the first time all of us, I think, have been in a forum together, so it really is meaningful to those of you in the audience here and especially to those of you watching. I am Carol Ross. I am candidate for City Parish Council, District 8, and I'll tell you why. Because years ago, back in 1966, I discovered Lafayette. I did not have the good fortune of being born here, but I came here in 1966, and for the past 45, 50 years, I've been involved in this community in so many ways, in business organizations, cultural, civic, and other organizations, a wide range of experience given to me and opportunity given to me by this community. And as I've gone door to door, I've learned even more. I've learned what the voters want, what the taxpayers want. They want a clean and safe community. They want the traffic problem solved, of course, we all know that. They would like economic development to be a top priority. And they would like trust in government. They would love to be able to trust their government again, and that is what I pledge to do, restore that trust in government.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. The first question will go first to Mr. Richard. What are some opportunities and some challenges you face as a councilman in representing the interests of your own district, the city of Lafayette, the unincorporated areas, and the parish of Lafayette?
I think one of the greatest challenges that we face is perhaps the charter. We're consolidated, but I asked the question, are we really consolidated? The picture looks something like this, right? So you get 2 people, and they get married, and then they have 2 separate checking accounts. Not that there's anything wrong with that, until the car breaks. And then we try to figure out, well, out of whose account are you going to pay for the car? The charter is established. By the way it's established, it sort of divides the city from the parish, from the unincorporated area. I think one of the greatest challenges, number one, is to take a good look at that charter and say, how can we get a workable charter that does not deconstruct consolidation? And I think, secondly, we got to get some good leadership in there that knows how to bring people together to figure out how can we solve whatever the different issues might be between the city of Broussard or the Lafayette or even the unincorporated area.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. Ms. Hebert.
Sorry, I didn't realize we were skipping around, going next to me. Opportunities and challenges. I think, can everybody hear me? Yes. I think the biggest thing, I can get into traffic and get into these, but I think we can sum it up in one word: planning. We need to start planning for our future. We need to start planning for traffic, for bridges, for infrastructure. We need to start planning for a more beautiful Lafayette, a more safe Lafayette. We need to start planning for a more walkable and bikeable Lafayette. Once we already have a plan, the comprehensive plan, Plan Lafayette. So we already have this plan in place. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's something that the community wants. So we need to start, we as a council, whenever I get elected, we need to look at the plan. And any decision that we make, we need to say, is this a part of our goal? Is this a part of our blueprint for our future? Because if it's not, it doesn't need to be a focus. But if it is, it's something that we need to spend time and money investing in it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ms. Hebert. Mr. Giudice.
Well, first of all, I do know that we're going to be talking about problems and solutions to those problems here at this forum, but I believe we come from a very fortunate city. This is a great city and a great parish. My family has been blessed with the support of this area for several decades, and I just want to be involved with the planning of the future of this parish. I believe some of the issues that we'll need to address are, of course, the traffic and other issues like that, but working together as a whole parish so we can accomplish the things we need to do as a city, a parish, and working together to keep us all focused on the same goal. Any portion of this parish that it benefits will benefit the whole if we all work together and keep this, this great city moving forward like we have done in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Giudice. Ms. Ross.
Well, with every plan comes a cost and regulations. And one thing we want to be sure is that when we have a plan for Lafayette, we make sure that it's a light touch in terms of regulation, because look at the past history of Lafayette. What has made this community the thriving, vibrant community that it is? And that is the private sector, both the for-profit and the nonprofit. And we certainly not want to do anything to damage that vibrant entrepreneurial spirit that we have in this community. We certainly want to have a light touch with regulation. We want to keep our taxes low. Right now, people in Lafayette, that's one of the first things they tell me going door to door. They're being hit by 22 taxes related to Obamacare. They were just hit with $800 million in new taxes from the state government. They are being hit, especially the middle class and especially small businesses. We need to keep small and mid-sized businesses strong. So these are challenges that we need to face, but we can't do it without communication. In my business, advertising, we listen to the client and we fashion and craft solutions to their problems by listening. We need to do that more.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Ms. Cook.
Can I just say ditto to everything because it was excellent? I agree totally with the idea of listening. That is the one thing that we need to be doing right now. In our district in particular, in every district, we've all been knocking on doors. We've been listening to what the people have had to say, what the issues are, what their concerns are. And those are the things that we need to be doing as the councilwoman, man, whatever may be, to find out what those issues are and what their concerns are. And we take those things back to our government, and we actually figure out as a group, a consensus, what we can do, what our tax, we don't want taxes. Who wants taxes? No one wants taxes. But again, we have to figure out how to take care of the things that we need to take care of without additional taxes, if possible, or some other more creative ways to actually keep the city thriving and taking care of all the things that we need to be taken care of, not only in our own districts, but in the whole city of Lafayette. So listening is so important, communicating with everyone is so important, and making sure that we all can come to get on the same page as far as prioritizing. What do we need to do as far as the most important projects and put those on the table first? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Ms. Hebert will answer the next question first. An amendment to our home rule charter will be on the November ballot, asking the voters to change the title of city parish president to mayor president and the form of Lafayette consolidated government to mayor president council. Will you support or oppose that amendment, and why?
I certainly support it. I think more than anything else, it's a convenience rather than city parish president. It's just mayor or president, mayor president. It's just a simple way of consolidating a bunch of words when it generally just means the same thing. It's easier to, whenever we bring in tourists into our community and we're introducing them to Mr. Joey Durrell, our soon-to-be, our next city parish president, it's more of a formality, so I do support it.
Thank you, Ms. Hebert. Mr. Giudice.
I also support it, but for a little bit different reason. All of the little cities, other cities in Lafayette Parish have their own mayor and have their own parish, city councils. In Lafayette, what you have is, just one city parish president, and maybe with the definition of calling it a mayor president instead, it gives Lafayette a little bit of a little bit of individualism for its own city borders. We will still be operating under a city parish government, but at least Lafayette will be able to kind of centralize the city, the mayor portion and the city portion, as well as how we incorporate with the rest of the parish.
Thank you, Mr. Giudice. Ms. Ross?
Well, this is the low-hanging fruit. It's just cosmetic. It's, as Shakespeare says, what's in a name? It's a mayor president, but it really doesn't change substantially or in any way, in any real way, the actual form of government, which, as Mr. Richard has said, definitely needs reforming. Now, we had one charter commission, the first one, they kind of got it wrong. The second one that went to a vote of the people, that was turned down. I've been told they want to do another charter commission and possibly put it up for a vote in 2019. That's too long. We have a constitution that's been amended 27 times, a United States Constitution. I think we surely can come together and, again, communicate and try to figure some amendments to this charter that will make it more functional, more reasonable, easier to work with. But again, I don't have a problem supporting this amendment because it really is cosmetic. We need to do some fundamental structural reform to really make this hybrid government that we have work.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Ms. Cook?
Yes, I totally support this change. It's really just a title change. The job description is the same. It's a more recognizable title when people come to the city, and when we had all those people, all the dignitaries from France and all these other countries that came, they were all called mayors, and basically it was just a title that we, what's your city, who's your city parish president? That it just seems more logical to have this title change just so that it's more of a uniform title. And again, it does not change the job description. It's just simply a title change. So yes, I do support it.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Mr. Richard?
Hey, so look, I was responsible for teaching leadership in the Marine Corps to officers, non-commissioned officers in the Marine Corps. And I said over and over again, the rank does not make the man makes the rank. Now, of course I'll support this. I don't have a problem because it's a title. It doesn't mean, but let me tell you what I will not support. I will not support a charter change that's going to deconstruct consolidation. I think the mayor, parish president, needs to keep us united.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. Mr. Giudice will answer this next question first. How do you see the role of annexation agreements with respect to future growth into the unincorporated parts of Lafayette Parish?
Well, as I understand it now, the different cities are sometimes struggling with each other to figure out who gets different sections of the city. When Ambassador Caffrey extension was completed, there was a lot of people vying for the different parts of that thoroughfare to make sure that they got the sections that would be the most beneficial to them. I think that we should develop a plan, and I think one is being developed in the works, to figure out exactly which parts of the unincorporated areas would be somewhat designated to the different cities if they choose to get annexed. And then from there on, we just keep moving forward with that instead of having two cities within the parish arguing with each other and not working together to make a common goal, to solve a common goal.
Thank you, Mr. Giudice. Ms. Ross?
Thank you. It's called areas of influence. And it's something I've been talking about for years, and it's something we should have been doing more in the past. The city of Lafayette should have had a more robust annexation policy. I'm afraid we've kind of let that slip. But at this point in time, there should be certain bedrock principles. Contiguity, you know, they should not be leapfrogging each other and trying to annex areas that that different municipalities feel are beneficial to themselves. There should be some contiguous nature. It should be in some way contiguous. So areas of influence agreed upon, and I understand this has been talked about by some of the municipalities, but not really agreed to in any formal kind of way. But I think it would go a long way toward solving this, the ambiguity and the antipathy of some of the animosity among some of the municipalities. So I would like to see areas of influence. And in terms of the overall consolidation, I think that what we could use better is a parish manager answerable to the whole parish council, which would make more sense because the unincorporated areas keep shrinking.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Ms. Cook.
Okay, I'm going to go back to that word communication. I believe it is very important that in doing this, all these annexation projects and looking to pull from certain areas to into the city of Lafayette and or not into the city of Lafayette and other areas, the tug of war that's been going on, I feel like there needs to be some communication, a plan put in place to figure out exactly, you know, what areas should be annexed, what areas should not be annexed. And again, the idea of just going and grabbing what you want and not making it, having a plan in place will cause so many problems and a lot of, you know, a lot of discussions between the two groups and not necessarily good discussions. So we need to have some sort of plan in place for this particular thing to happen on a more fair way in terms of all the people involved in this project. So.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Mr. Richard.
So, Mr. Bertrand, my district city councilman right now, is here. I met with him almost 2 years ago and had a series of questions as I was processing whether or not I was going to make this bid for the office. When I asked him, what is the solution to the problem in terms of you know, the constant demand for more taxes on the people? And he said, listen, we're growing. The demand on the infrastructure is greater than what the tax base can support. Is what Mr. Bertrand told me then. And I said, well, what is the solution? And he told me annexation. I believe that if government is going to be appropriate, if it's going to be functional, if it's going to be feasible, if it's going to be sustainable, I think annexation's got to be a part of that plan. And I think it's just really a matter of having the right people skill set to sit people down, and just like Ms. Carroll said a little bit earlier, and say, you know, how do we make this thing so it's fair, right, all across the board? I think it's a doable thing. I'm for it.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. Ms. Hebert.
Walking door to door, you hear from different people mixed reactions that they either do want to be annexed or do not want to be annexed into Lafayette Parish. Lafayette's about to experience some major growth. They're anticipating about 66,000 people arriving into Lafayette in the next 15 years. That means more homes being built, more property being bought up, and more people being annexed, which is a good thing. If you want to be annexed into Lafayette Parish, you make a phone call to Lafayette Consolidated Government, and they have a few steps that you follow, a very simple process. So there is a way for you to be annexed in. We eventually, or like everyone has mentioned, we're going to be annexing more and more people into Lafayette Parish as we grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hebert. Ms. Ross will answer this next question first. What is your position on incentives for infill development and adaptive reuse of existing buildings?
Well, I think the private sector is always the best way to go on this. And why is that? Because when the private sector makes a mistake, they do it on their own dollar. When government makes a mistake trying to promote certain things, they do it on our dollar. And quite often, they're not able to turn around on a dime as the private sector. Quite often, the private sector will make mistakes when they do their market research, and they can turn around. When government does it, it's more like turning around the Titanic. Quite often, they get it wrong, and it takes forever to get it right. And who's on the hook for the money? The taxpayers. And so if infill is the way to go, then let's let the private sector decide. And we've heard a lot about residential downtown, and of course that's wonderful, that's a great idea, and there are many property owners downtown. If the numbers worked, believe me, they would be developing residential downtown. So we have to be really careful about government really pushing some of these ideas. Make sure that we're listening to the private sector and responding appropriately without costing the taxpayers a lot of money.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Ms. Cook.
All right, I think in this particular in this particular situation, excuse me, let's go a different route. I do believe that you really have to look at maybe a case-by-case situation, because I am not in favor of government spending lots of money on retrofitting buildings for certain things if that building is not going to work for that situation. But I do believe that there might be some ability that the government or private sector, either one, has to reuse a building, because we have so many buildings that are left empty, and that's not a good thing to have in the community either. It doesn't look well. So if the ability to reuse the building or infill it for a particular situation works, then, and it's not a drain on the government, and it's something that retrofits fairly easily, then, and again, would show a profit or show a good use of that particular space, then I do believe that it's not a bad idea. So again, I would say we would have to look at it on a case-by-case situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Mr. Richard.
So here's my thought. What we're asking is, do I agree that the private sector can maybe develop some kind of partnership with government? I think you could do that, but I would be very cautious about that. And let me tell you why. I think it gives way to possible misuse or incentives that really are just unfair. I believe that every decision has got to be made. I think Lafayette is a very business-friendly community. I don't know how consumer-friendly it is, right? So to give incentives to businesses but not be so concerned about the priority of the people would be my concern in that. So I have no problem with saying I want you to fill that building. I don't want a vacant building, but I'd be very cautious about incentives or tax breaks to make that happen.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. Ms. Hebert.
I think someone mentioned a really good point. It's certainly a case-by-case basis on these kind of situations. In the questions that we get for the campaign, it seems like they're kind of positioned in a way of you're one way or the other. And that's not how real life works. It truly is a case-by-case basis. In this instance, I think this is a great example of how we can work together in a public-private sector or a local and state government working together. I think incentives can be, if used properly, a great opportunity for a business that might not have had the opportunity to build in an old abandoned building. But is it appropriate for every single time? I don't believe so.
Thank you, Ms. Hebert. Mr. Giudice.
Yeah, I agree with Liz on the aspect of it's a case-by-case deal. You can't be totally for or totally against this, I don't believe. It's a supply and demand solution. It's a simple business deal. When the demand is high enough, the developers will come and build. When you already have the infill, you don't need to add the extra infrastructure that you need to go out to different subdivisions. Maybe some incentives would be a good fit for that situation, so that you don't have to go out and build new roads and maintain those new roads and such. So it has to be a case-by-case basis, in my opinion, and you study each one, you see the positives and negatives of each situation, and you decide on it from there.
Thank you, Mr. Giudice. We have heard it from every single, I think, most of the candidates here. Would you each like to take a few seconds to explain what you mean by case-by-case basis? Just start from Ms. Hebert right here. We'll just go down the end.
Sure. I love audience participation, so thank you so much. Case-by-case basis, meaning not every situation is exactly the same, right? I think, right? Sir, no? Correct. Yeah, correct. So
Excuse me, sir. Let the candidates respond, okay?
Yeah, not everything is a case-by-case basis, is that not every situation is exactly the same. Not every business is exactly the same. Not every tax break, or I don't want to use the word tax break because that's not the appropriate word, but not every incentive is exactly the same. Using the example of my job is whenever I bring an event to whenever a group calls me from a different state, they say, what can you do for this? What can you do for that? Not every event is exactly the same, so the rent won't be exactly the same every time. It's simply, that's what I mean by case-by-case basis.
Okay. Richard, will you give us 30 seconds on this? Okay. Mr. Judice, let's just go down the line.
Okay, I mean, similar to what Liz was saying, in my business, there are certain demands that a customer will ask on us. And on certain days, at certain times, we can accommodate those deals, and it's a case-by-case basis. So on certain days, certain times, we just can't fulfill a certain need. But on other days, at other times, we can. And it'd be the same thing in this type of deal. You know, if a project looks like it could help an area, you know, somewhere, sometimes in the north side or something like that, if you'd need to make a special incentive to have something done there, then maybe it would be a good feasible thing to do.
And therein lies the problem. It's so subjective, and you're turning power over to unelected bureaucrats, and you have no input. And as an elected official, I would not want to cede that responsibility to a nameless, faceless bureaucrat to decide who's the winner and who's the loser in any situation. And typically, when you have a public-private partnership, you know who gets left holding the bag and who gets the profit. And that's the problem with this kind of subjective response to this kind of problem. There's really a problem with this, and we've seen it at every level of government.
All right, well, I appreciate those comments on that, and it's very true. It's subjective to some extent, but if you put certain things in place, certain parameters, certain numbers, certain budgets, certain things that you have a benchmark where you can go with this particular project. What can we do with this? What can we not do with this? And again, simply case by case would simply mean that, you know, we have a matrix to follow. We have certain things that we're following, but every situation is not going to be the same. Every building is not going to be the same. So there are going to be some situations where this building might work. It might work. This one may not. So we go from there.
I think we're asking whether or not we're going to be governed by principle or by the blow of the wind. And the reason why you'd hear people say probably case by case is because they are different, and I understand that. And the last thing anybody wants to appear today, sir, is to be an obstructionist, right? We got to be open-minded to entertain thoughts and ideas, and everybody's voice is important. However, let me restate this one more time. I am not one that favors government-private partnerships. I would be very cautious about any kind of government-private partnership deal that to fill the space.
Okay, and I'm sure the candidates will be around for a few minutes after the forum if there are additional questions on this particular point, but we will move forward. Thank you. Ms. Cook will answer this question next. Are we overtaxed, undertaxed, or right on the button to fund Lafayette Consolidated Government, and why?
Okay, wow, this is a good one, huh? Taxes. Well, we have a budget that is, at this current moment, is maybe not working as far as covering everything that we need to cover in the city of Lafayette. We have some areas in the unincorporated area that are needing some help, and the city is not, we're not able to help them as much as we should be. So yes, we are struggling a little bit financially right now. Now, do we need another tax? I don't necessarily say we need to go to that as a solution. So if we're undertaxed, I don't think we're undertaxed, and I don't want to send the message that we need more taxes. So at this point in the game, I think it's a matter of looking at priorities, finding out what projects need to be done in order of priority. And from that point on, then we look at the budget and see what can we do first. What are the most important things that will affect the most people that we need to do before we go to the idea of, oh, we need another tax. All right, so again, I would not comment on the fact that we need more or less, but I think we need to just prioritize current projects that need to be done and see where we are with the budget.
Thank you, Ms. Cook.
Well, I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like I'm overtaxed. And overtaxed time, and again, I file my income tax returns as self-employed. I did all the math one time. I figured out that I'm really working for the government. I don't even get a paycheck from them, right? I mean, more of my taxes go back to the government. I believe we're overtaxed. When we're talking about just 10 years ago, the budget was somewhere around $435 million, and then in 2014, last year, the budget was $605 million. And I've asked this simple question, and I can't even get the straight answer. But the question is, how can we have taken in more money over the last decade of prosperity and still say we don't have enough money to take care of the roads? I don't get it. I say we're overtaxed. I think that we have to locate and prioritize the budget. I think we got to find what's the elephant that's sinking the ship. And if there's no big elephant on there to throw off board, then you got to find the rat and throw that thing off, right? Or several of them, but overtaxed.
Thank you, Mr. Richard, and I do appreciate your enthusiasm, but just in case, I'm going to shake it up a little bit.
Sorry.
Wait till we call on you, please.
That's why you put them on the edge.
That's right.
Just want to make sure everybody knows how I feel about that.
Ms. Hebert.
Gosh, Bobby, how do I follow that? Come on. No, I mean, no one loves taxes. Nobody wants to pay more taxes. We all want to pay less in taxes. We all think the same exact way. I think that one thing that we can do, especially before we ever start discussing increasing our taxes, we need to look and see the taxes that we should be collecting, state and property tax. Are we collecting the right amount? Is there something that we're missing? I think that's the first place that we can start, is look at the taxes and funding that we should be receiving and making sure that we're receiving it. I think that we need to work with our state legislators, one locally, and see what they're doing at the state level to help make sure we're getting all the funding, whether it's by grants or budget, to make sure we're receiving everything that we can possibly be receiving. And then, God forbid, we get to that point, there's no other money, and we need to increase taxes. That goes to the public. That's not something we as a council say, we want to add tax, we can do this. It goes to the public, and the public decides if that's a priority at that point.
Thank you, Ms. Hebert. Mr. Judice.
Yeah, personally, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say I'm undertaxed. I don't care what income level you're in or where you are or what kind of tax it is. But I mean, personally, I just believe the voters decide. You decide what you want to pay for and what what kind of improvements you'd like and how much you want to spend on it. In my opinion, a good example is the airport tax that we voted on. Everybody said, yes, we need a better airport, and we're willing to pay for it. There's a time structure to it. We're going to, improve it to X amount, and we're going to go from there. Also, we need to prioritize our needs, and if we have a plan set forth, if we can prioritize our needs, and then, like Liz said, make sure that we're collecting the proper taxes to meet those needs, there may not be as much of a need for an increase in taxes. But the public will decide what they want to pay for and how much they want to pay, and also maybe how they want to pay for it, whether it be a use tax or a property tax or whatever. I'm not a big fan of property taxes, to tell you the truth.
Thank you, Mr. Judice. And Ms. Ross.
Thank you. Well, doesn't it always amaze you when you talk to elected officials and they say, Lafayette is the lowest tax. They lament the fact that Lafayette has the lowest sales tax in the state. I think that's a good thing, and I think that's been an incentive for people to come here and shop, and we are so dependent on sales taxes in this community, and so we want to make sure that we spend the money properly, e.g. fixing the roads so that the people can get here and not be discouraged from coming here to shop. I don't think we're undertaxed. And I do think that when we have a specific proposal, such as the airport tax or the rededication of the health control, animal control, et cetera, property tax, millage, that was a good thing. And I think the people spoke very wisely in those areas. But here's the problem. Quite often you see the funding diverted. We give them money for roads, and then we see it diverted to fluff. What people on my district, when I've been going door to door, say, stop with the fluff, let's fix the roads. And that's what I hear all the time. We keep diverting the funds. So then when we come back to the people and we say, give us more money, and they're saying, and how are you going to use it?
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Now, Mr. Richard, we're going to start with you this time. What mechanisms would you consider to achieve the goals of the comprehensive plan, and how will you pursue these?
That's a loaded question. And because I think the first question you have to ask me is, am I on board with the comprehensive plan, totally as it's written right now. And I can tell you from the get-go, I would really have to look all the way through this thing to say, hey man, let me give you an example. The UDC code, right? It was passed. I still got questions. How does this affect property rights? It's just a question. I have a question that says, how does the UDC, as it's passed, how does it affect the economy, right? I mean, what is the economic impact that this might have right here on the parish? So I think the first question I have to ask, because we're asking how I'm going to implement it, I think we have to ask whether or not I'm going to implement it, right, or whatnot. And listen, let me say this. I understand that you got to have a plan, right? If you have no plan, you have a plan to fail. I got that. But I think that we have to tread cautiously. I think that there's some genuine concerns about the comprehensive plan. I think there are some people that have tried to voice those concerns, and we need to give heed to those concerns and proceed cautiously.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. Ms. Hebert.
I think we as a council need to get together and decide our priorities. The plan is already made. The plan is already in place. I think that we need to come together as the 9 districts and decide for us, what are our benchmarks? What are the projects we would like to see be able to check off our list by our 4-year term? And then we as a group come together with that timeline. And anytime we're making a decision, do we say, does this fit our priority list for this council 4-year term? Because some things are going to come up and we're going to get swayed, we're going to get excited, but is this what we all decided on, the 9 of us? And if it didn't, that needs to not be our focus. I think that between the 9 districts, we can all come up with a compromise. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hebert. Mr. Judice?
Well, first of all, the comprehensive plan is just that. It's a plan. It is not written in stone or anything else. So like any family or business setting, we need to prioritize the goals, which are part of that comprehensive plan, and figure out which ones or figure out the feasibility of each one of those plans so we can actually afford to do it. Get a cost-to-benefit relationship to figure out what we can do and whether we can afford to do them. Then we have to be ready and willing to adjust or change the plan as we move forward, because as we accomplish 1 or 2 of these goals that we set forth, the plan may change or you may need to totally adjust it. So the plan is good. You have to have a plan as you move forward, but it doesn't mean it's written in stone or that we have to exactly follow the way it was put. The 9 of us that are going to be elected and the 9 after that will have to reassess the plan each year that we go on as things are accomplished and we see where we're going and what we can afford to do next, what's feasible for the parish at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Judice. Ms. Ross?
Well, the problem with the comprehensive plan is it's too big. It reminds me of Obamacare. It's over 200 pages. I guarantee you there aren't 50 people in this room or anywhere else that have read that plan. And so once again, it leaves the enforcement mechanism up to the bureaucrats. We don't know how this, it does not have the force of law, by the way. It was just passed by council resolution, so it is more or less a suggestion. But it does put more power into the hands of government. And when you look at the private sector, I've worked with the home builders for many years, and you look where the demands are, where the affordable land is, and the ability to develop, it's out in the unincorporated areas. And so it's really difficult to impose this sort of comprehensive plan. That's the problem with it. And there was no cost-benefit analysis to it. So we really have no idea. And when you get into the UDC, the Unified Development Code, they're telling you how wide the sidewalks are going to be and where the trees are going to be and all that sort of stuff. I mean, really and truly, is this what a comprehensive plan should be doing? They've already amended the Unified Development Code many times. So we have to keep an eye on this.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Ms. Cook?
All right, I agree with Carol. It's a very huge plan. We basically need the Cliff Note version maybe for us all to read it, to understand it, to get all the ins and outs of it. But I do believe there needs to be a plan. I do believe that the idea behind this was to give us a plan for the future growth, keeping certain things in the city, certain things to make developments a certain way, and maybe that's too involved, again, for the government to have too much control over private businesses. There's definitely some gray area there, but I do think it is a good plan for us to have in place in terms of knowing where we're going. Are there some changes that need to be made with it? Yes, of course. Again, we look at that when a situation comes up that maybe it does not work for that particular situation. There may be some changes that have to be made, but again, We use this plan as a guide to help us for future in terms of the growth of the city, for us to have a better understanding of where we're trying to go with the development of the city.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. The next question will go to Ms. Hebert first. What factors should be considered in finalizing the I-49 connector through Lafayette?
My biggest concern about the I-49 connector is the part where it goes from I-10 to I-49 all the way down to the airport. That area on that side of town is already unsightly. This is already one of our main entrances that people come in, and that's what they're welcome to in Lafayette. That's their first impression. And that's not a good first impression. We pride ourselves on being so welcoming to tourists, to people that come to events at the convention center, conferences, different things like that. So I hesitate to make it more unsightly. If done correctly, it can be a beautiful thing. This is something that the community has openly said that they've needed. It's things that we've received funding for. I'm concerned about the beautification and how they plan to make it look. It's supposed to improve the traffic. It's supposed to have all these great qualities, but my biggest thing is the beautification of that area.
Thank you, Ms. Hebert. Mr. Giudice.
Well, I-49 has been a discussion and a theory for a long time. I think it needs to be supported and completed. It's long overdue. But I agree with Liz as far as it goes through Lafayette, you don't want it to be a dividing line between North and South Lafayette or those areas up there. I believe this is something that we can get support from the citizens if we have more open support like they had for Plan Lafayette, to get citizens together and say, okay, what can we do to make this an adjoining deal for North and South Lafayette and not just a dividing street through Lafayette. I think there are other cities that have raised highways that run through them, that there's still a beautification effort beneath those roadways to keep it looking attractive and inviting to the people that are on it, and of course the people in the city. I think we could do, easily just learn from these other cities and get this thing completed, though. It needs to be done.
The
Ms. Ross.
problem, the thing that worries me about I-49 as it's drawn now is that it's a grade separation all the way from I-10 to the airport. That is a huge impediment to development, to beautification, et cetera. It really is going to have an impact on those neighborhoods. I've been blessed to do a little bit of traveling, and I've seen the way they've done it in certain other areas, that they could keep it at grade and still have limited access by having local roads on either side with separation, with landscaping, with some sort of divider. We have 3 lanes going in each direction right now. We have a huge median. It seems to me that we could do something at grade level that would not have such a negative impact on those neighborhoods and that area of the city, which is already challenged as it is. The original plan that I saw many years ago was actually a recessed highway, but that was poo-pooed. It actually would have been a beautiful thing, a recessed highway with linear green space on either side. But that's not to be, so I'd like to see us have some input as to how it finally looks.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Ms. Cook?
I too have some concern on this project in terms of coming through the Lafayette area, cutting it, slicing it in half. The beautification is very important in that area in terms of making sure that we, respect those neighborhoods, those areas, instead of, plowing our road right through there where they live. I do think it's something to be considered as far as safety. I mean, that's a very busy street as it is right now, and by raising that I-49 above in that area, we probably. It's a good thing as far as people walking. There's right now people travel across, I-49 right there, and it's somewhat of a dangerous thoroughfare as far as people in the area. There's always some issues in that particular neighborhood. So a raised road would be great in that area. Again, I just am concerned about how they would take care of this as far as keeping that area, livable and beautiful for those people that actually live there.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Mr. Richard?
I feel like I'm the odd guy out. Look, I believe in airbrush makeup, right? I mean, if it was acceptable for all men, I might have to purchase some. I have no problem with trying to make things more aesthetically appealing. However, my question is it functional? Here's my question. What would concern me? Number one, what about the displaced businesses that are already there? What's going to happen there? What happens to the people that are living there now? Fixed incomes. What happens to them, right? And then the big question is, well, how are you going to pay for it? I've heard quotes upward of $5 billion being the cost for that elevated highway. I know that there was another proposed bypass along the Tesh Ridge line for somewhere around $500 million, something of that nature. But the question for me, the concern for me is, how are you going to pay for it, would be the question.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. The next question goes to Mr. Giudice first. How would you plan to accelerate the disposition of adjudicated properties?
This would have to be something I would refer to experts around town. We have an abundance of intelligence in this city, abundance of intelligence in this table, and I'd have to work with other people. This is not an area that I'm certainly an expert in, and I would have to go to the community and go to some of these people, I hope, and help me with this problem. This is not something that I have an expertise in that I could comment on to make any sense.
Thank you, Mr. Giudice. Ms. Ross?
It is me. This has been a problem for many, many years, adjudicated properties, and it's always a tricky issue because you don't want to come in and confiscate someone's property. But many of these properties, the property owners, of course, are deceased, and maybe their heirs are part of the plan. And you've got to find all these people. Many of them live out of town, so it really, really is. It's a problem. But my feeling is that once you have contacted all of these people over and over and over again, it seems to me that the government would have some way of dealing with this problem. And there are problems, especially in the more economically distressed areas, as you might imagine. So it is a problem, and you want to tread carefully because you don't want to be confiscating property. But when you've made due diligence and a real effort to solve this problem, it seems to me that you would have some ability to get in there and get it solved.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Ms. Cook?
All right, I agree with Carol. If once you've gone through the process of locating heirs, locating relatives, and you've done your homework, you've checked it all out, and you've not been able to contact these particular people, the property then should, the government should have some kind of recourse in finding out, okay, maybe there's something we can do with it now, because we've done our homework and we can't seem to find out what to do with these property based on what the heirs of this property want to do. So again, it is a problem, but I do think that, if we do our homework, go through the channels we need to go through to find out who owns this property, what is their plan for it, and if there is no plan and we can't get any answers, after a certain amount of time, I'm not sure what that time period would be. We'd have to establish that if it's not already established. But then we go from there and we decide to take care of the situation in terms of, doing what we need to do to take care of that property.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Mr. Richard?
Man, I'm starting to think my operating system is a little outdated. Everybody wants to accelerate, and I want to slow down a little bit, And what I mean by that is simply this. We're talking about accelerating the process. I would be, again, cautious about making sure that there's not an overreach of government. We got to make sure that we're not taking people's property, right? Having said that, just like we've already heard, I think once all the homework has been done, then there has to be some sort of way to, if there's not already a system that's in place to adjudicate that property. I don't know if I'm in the market though to accelerate that, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. Ms. Hebert?
I can actually put this into an example for you, is while walking door to door, there's a house, I don't want to name the neighborhood, right in the middle of Lafayette. I spoke to a really concerned woman, Ms. White, and she told me, look across my street. I walk out my front door every day, and I have to look at that. A blue tarp hanging over their entire roof, overgrown landscape, cars on blocks in the driveway. Imagine if you had to live across the street from that person. And this hasn't been going on for a few months or a few weeks or a couple of years. They just haven't found them. They've been to court with them for 14 years. That is unacceptable. Of course, I do believe Let's not accelerate. Let's not just rip it from them. But that is unacceptable. That woman should not have to suffer for the last 14 years looking at that house. Should we contact them? Yes. Should we contact the heirs? Yes. Should we see what kind of issues they're having and how we can help? Yes. If there's no problem, if they just say, I don't care, oh well, I don't want to deal with it, I think city parish should help step in and help solve that problem, because those people should not have to live next to that and affect their property values.
Thank you, Ms. Hebert.
Thank you.
Ms. Ross will answer the next question first. Should Lafayette consolidated government funding be increased, decreased, or eliminated for non-governmental social service nonprofits and/or cultural organizations and events such as Faith House, 232 Help, the Acadiana Arts Council, and Festival International, and why?
Well, I think every one of these agencies, and I believe a process was put in place for them to apply and to justify why they would receive the funding. In some areas, such as Faith House, government could not possibly provide the service that Faith House provides for the amount of money that government gives it. So I think they perform a huge, 232 Help, same thing. In terms of Festival International and some of the cultural activities, you have to look at the return on investment. Festival International, when you give it $1, you're getting 6 or 7 times back. So every single one of these has to be examined carefully, each one, and seen what is the benefit, what is the cost, and what is the benefit to the community. Years ago, when we looked at our cultural, our little cultural gem here in Lafayette, our culture, our French culture, we knew that we needed to polish this. We knew that we needed to develop this cultural economy, and we did that. And it has paid off, I believe, in a very big way. I think we want to keep that strong, and we want to look at each agency individually and look at what the benefit is to the community versus the cost.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Ms. Cook.
All right, I am a big supporter of the arts. I have 3 of my children involved with the arts, and so I am, very much in love of the arts. But I do believe that consolidated government can fund just so much. I feel like, yes, culturally we have, our culture is beautiful here. We're known for it. We draw people in here because of our culture, our joie de vivre. It's wonderful, and I feel like that is a very important part of our city. But we also have issues, roads, drainage, other things that priority-wise should be looked at first. I'm not saying we shouldn't fund any of these programs. They're all wonderful programs, but they should be looked at each one, on their own to find out exactly what is the benefit the city gets from them, because we do benefit from each one of these. They're great services. They're great things that we do in our city, in our parish. But I do think, money-wise, priority-wise, we need to look at certain things first, and then we go to the arts and to all the other nonprofit organizations that we can support. Now, if my daughter and my family, my children heard me say that, they would probably be very mad at me, but that's what we need to do.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Mr. Richard.
Yeah, I say decrease. And we live in a very generous community, very generous. And I think the solution comes by fostering community investment. Right here tonight, there is a transitional home called the Freedom House that's come right out of our church. He runs 2 houses right here in Lafayette. It's self-sustaining. It doesn't require government funding to support it, right? I think that we can call upon the generosity of our community to meet these needs. Let me give you another one. The Lafayette Ballet Company, same thing, right there on Verrat School Road. They're self-sustaining. I think that financially, we've got to make traffic and the roadways, the infrastructure, the priority. I answer that, decrease.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. Ms. Hebert?
I think District 7's pretty much hit the nail on the head, and I guess I'll reiterate what they're saying is, our culture is the key to economic development. It brings so many people in, Festival International, Festival Acadiana Center for the Arts. It brings people in that otherwise would not be spending money here. They're coming in for a play, they're gonna go eat dinner, they're gonna go shopping, they're gonna come in and eat, drink, live Lafayette, right? It's great for us. But as everyone else has mentioned, we're at a time where we need new bridges. We're working on that. We need new roads. We're trying to work on that. This is, unfortunately, some of the things that may have to get cut in order to make these bridges, roads, and infrastructure and all these different things happen. I hope to not cut it, and I hope for us to find creative solutions to not have to get to that level.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Hebert. Mr. Judice?
Hey, first of all, my wife teaches art at Cathedral, so I'm a little biased in this area. I think government can lend a helping hand to these organizations, and I'm going to use those dreaded words, on a case-by-case basis. You have to look at these things each on their own merits. A lot of these festivals and the arts contribute to our culture and our uniqueness in this area. We have to look at the return on investment of each one of these festivals and organizations that are used here. The return on investment generated from the support of the arts community needs to be considered. My industry, the hospitality industry, the restaurants, hotels, lounges, we depend upon those for the tourists that it brings in and the locals that gets them out moving and running and spending their money. The retail areas also make some money off of these events and such. So there is a return on investment to having these things and supporting some of them, but it just has to be, looked into and see which ones could work and not.
Thank you, Mr. Judice. Ms. Cook will respond to this next question first. What steps, if any, should Lafayette Consolidated Government take to reduce the large disparity of wealth noted in our community?
All right, we're talking, maybe let's talk housing first. When we look at North Lafayette and South Lafayette, and we're looking at trying to have both areas develop and grow, we need to look at, housing that's affordable for all to get those areas growing. And so we have the issue of, developers building homes, affordable homes, but they can't turn them over because the income levels vary throughout the community. So I think in this situation, we need to look at some ways that there's some grants or some assistance, federal assistance of some sort, maybe that some of these developers to help build certain housing or certain types of homes within an affordable income level so that we can spread the wealth around, so we can spread the community out, spread it out a little bit more. Because if we build homes in different areas, let's say the north side, or we in different, out of the parish, in certain areas where we spread the community out, then basically what happens after we spread them out there? Then retail goes up. The whole area will develop a little more if we put housing in there.
Mr. Richard.
I would say answer might be twofold. Number one, I think education is essential for that. We got to provide great education. By the way, my wife and I, we have 5 kids. All of them went to public school, and they all turned out pretty good. So I'm not saying that it's terrible, but obviously we have to make some investment in education. Now, let me say this: not just education. I think we've got to cultivate mentorship programs, like Boys and Girls Clubs of America, right? If we can shape the way folk process information, or even just sort of contribute to families, maybe there are children that are being raised in a single parent home, so it's almost like a poverty trap. If we could make some inroads there, I think we could narrow the gap.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. Ms. Hebert?
I'm not sure if I believe, as of right now, that it's the LCG, the government's role. I think we talked about earlier, not reinventing the wheel. I think there's so many other great organizations out there, such as LEDA, who has job fairs, United Way, which has help for taxes, working on your taxes, interview positions. You have so many incredible scholarships for South Louisiana Community College. There's so many great ways to help people, not just the disparity of wealth, but helping lift them up, get them out the situation that they're in. I think LCG, the role we can take in that is maybe help shed light on those organizations, help promote these organizations, help, through our websites, our newsletters, our town hall meetings with our community, sharing these organizations. And if someone needs help, knowing that they can come to us to find placement and help. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Hebert. Mr. Judice?
Well, I think the first thing is you have to encourage business growth and job creation. The best way to close the gap between disparity in wealth is to have meaningful jobs and meaningful employment provided to people. And now that's only only accomplished through the private sector. Also, when you have to keep track of your housing authority and have strict accountability on that. There's been several issues not only in Lafayette, but in many areas that the housing authorities that are dependent upon, or that the needy are dependent upon protecting them, are the ones that are actually spending more money on the administration of the process instead of actually helping the people that are in need. So we need more accountability and also focus on job growth and business growth and job creation.
Thank you, Mr. Judice. Ms. Ross?
Oh, I don't know. I read somewhere the best anti-poverty program is a job. And so anything we can do as a government to keep our taxes low, to encourage economic development and job growth would be the best thing that we can do for the community. Lafayette has always been a vibrant entrepreneurial community. Even in this downturn with the oil industry, we see how strong this economy really is, even now. And one of the things that we worked on years ago in Vision Lafayette, we had a terrible downturn then. This is nothing compared to that. We lost 22% of our economy just about overnight back then. And we brought 465 people together in something called Vision Lafayette. And the two areas that we identified where we had the strongest possibility for development was our cultural economy and our health care. And those are two areas that are right now standing us in good stead, because you've seen the return on investment we get from the cultural economy. You look at what we're getting out of healthcare, and bringing a medical school to Lafayette, absolutely critical.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. This is the last question, and Mr. Richard will answer it first. What environmentally sustainable initiatives would you or would you not support for Lafayette Consolidated Government during your term?
That's a loaded question. When I talked about the elephant on the budget, right, financially, we know that LUS carries a big part of the budget for LCG, for consolidated government. I would wonder, would there be, of course I've had the conversation with Mr. Terry of Huval, and I think if there was a blue ribbon sort of commission that would really take a hold of this thing and go forward and move, but I'd love to see the possibility of us building maybe our own regional or local power plant that would be powered by natural gas, our own resource. We know that it's far more energy efficient to burn these. I would look toward that, look at that as an option.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. Ms. Hebert?
That's certainly one option. We can look at LUS utilizing other environmentally friendly wind power, solar, you name it. Another easy, going back to the Project Front Yard initiative, Plan Lafayette initiative is the Project Front Yard program, which is run by the community. It's volunteers, high school, college, old, young, you name it. They're out there participating. They're cleaning up our streets. They're partnering with LCG, getting out there, cleaning it up, and encouraging other groups to participate as well. So I think that's a great start.
Thank you, Ms. Hebert. Mr. Judice?
Well, as she mentioned, Project Front Yard, I know that project firsthand because I have one of the garbage collection sites right next to my house and the coulee next to us. It certainly is going to be a long-term attractive portion for the river, I believe, but it's not so friendly for our neighborhood. That's something I'm willing to live with if it accomplishes what it's there for. Like Mr. Richard mentioned also, Louisiana is a large producer of natural gas. I think we should start looking for uses of that natural gas as a cheap form of energy, as well as, from an understanding, the coal-fired plants for LUS will need to be phased out or cleaned up. So we have natural gas right here in the state. Let's start looking at ways to utilize that and take advantage of it.
Thank you, Mr. Judice. Ms. Ross?
Well, I've been in conversation with Terry Huval on several occasions, Director of Utilities, and we've talked about that coal-fired plant, which we are part owner of in Boyce. So at this point in time, I think they're looking at possibly going to a hybrid sort of thing with coal and natural gas. It would be difficult to transition immediately to natural gas, but that would be the way to go. But I'll tell you what, I think our environmental quality department is one of the best and most functional in the city of Lafayette, and I have to give props to Mark Pope, who's in charge of that department. And I happened to be around when we fought to get recycling, curbside recycling done, and of course the household chemical day that we have, and those are all things that I think make Lafayette very sustainable. I would like to see, of course, we used to do Trash Bash, now it's Project Front Yard, and I'm glad to see that happening because we really do need to get a handle on litter. That would go a long way toward improving our environment in Lafayette. But I really do think that Mark Pope does a heck of a job, and anything we can do to expand the recycling program, to do more of the household chemical recycling, and then see if we can convert to natural gas on a reasonable timetable.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Ms. Cook?
Okay, I do think our community is very well aware of environmental issues and also very, interested in recycling and doing all the things that we need to do in terms of making, us more environmentally friendly here. I do believe that our coal plant, again, needs to be looked at as far as transitioning into maybe more gas, using more wind, more solar, more of those issues, more of those, sources of energy need to be looked at. But I do think, as a community, we are really very environmentally friendly on a case-by-case basis in terms of our favorite word. I just did that just for you. We are very, with our recycling programs that we have, the participation is very big in those programs. So again, all of those things are very important for our community. But again, we also, we have good resources here in terms of people who know what they need to be doing. They can guide us. They can help us in terms of finding out what is the best way that we can become, more environmentally friendly and use the energy that we need to use as far as, in the best possible way that we can.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. We have reached the point in the forum when the candidates will make a closing statement. Candidates have 2 minutes each. We will hear from the candidates in reverse alphabetical order. District 8 first, which means that Ms. Ross will begin.
Thank you, and once again, I do want to thank the League, and I want to thank UL. I spent many happy years in this building, much to the chagrin of my parents. They were ready for me to graduate, and I did receive my degree here from UL. Et je peux parler français un peu, oui. That was my original major, which brought me to South Louisiana and to Lafayette, and it was love at first sight, sound, taste, whatever. I absolutely love this community. I've been involved in this community. I've been here for 50 years. I've been involved in a very meaningful way for the past 45 years in educational, civic, charitable, and business organizations. So I think that's given me a real perspective, a deeper understanding of the community and of District 8. And especially as I've gone door to door, really listening to people. That's what I do in my business. I listen to my clients and I work with them to solve their problems. And that's what I think we need to do. We need better communication. We've had cases where we've had lawsuits filed because there was no communication, and we all ended up paying for those legal bills. So I think real communication among the council members, and I think it begins with talking about how we're going to reform the charter, make it a more functional charter. The people that I've heard from also are very concerned about keeping our police and fire departments strong. They want a safe community because nothing good happens in an unstable community. We know that. They want the traffic problems solved. I've heard that loud and clear. The drainage problems. There are some subdivisions in this city that have been annexed in for 20 years and they still have open drainage ditches and no sidewalks. I think communicating with those neighborhoods to try to solve those problems is really important. And finally, economic development, really critical to the future of this community. And I say that because I really believe that a medical school in Lafayette is one of the most important things we can do. But above all, what I want to do with the citizens is build trust, rebuild the trust in government that has been lost over the years at every level, and I commit to do that as your District 8 representative.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Mr. Judice.
My campaign message is based on preserving our past while planning our future. We are fortunate to live in a great city that, in my opinion, has the best quality of life for our families, businesses, and all of its citizens. I'm running for parish council and not against anyone. I want to work together to secure our community's best possible future. We have an abundance of intellectual assets in this city, and I plan to utilize that intelligence and concern for the people in this room, as well as the people in the community itself. We may not agree on every issue, but I will seek to value the input from different sides of our issues to develop the best possible strategies. I value your opinions, ideas, and solutions to the problems facing our great city and parish. I think we need to work together and follow the words of Coach Hudspeth's hold the rope and pull our community forward. I also think we should live some of our local slogans, the pride of Acadiana and Lafayette Strong, 365 days a year, not just when there's a tragedy or a storm that's coming this way. We can and will keep Lafayette the best place to work, live, and raise our families. I ask you to help me to help you preserve the prosperous future of our great city. I'm asking for your support, I'm asking for your vote, and I'm looking forward to October 24th.
Thank you, Mr. Giudice.
We all are, Gerald.
Ms. Hebert.
Lafayette, like everyone else is saying, we have our issues, but God, we're so lucky, especially District 8. We are so, so blessed. Why am I running? I want to make a difference. I want to make a difference in my community and for my future, for my friends' future, for my friends' kids' futures. We need to start now. I'm a doer. I'm a uniter. I'm one of those people that if you come to me with a problem, I'm going to help you solve it, or we're going to find a loophole to solve it. We can work together on this. I walk door to door and people don't even know who their city parish council member is, but they can tell you the stat from the LSU game 12 years ago. I want to be that person that helps change. I can sit here and promise you the world. I can promise you you'll never wait in traffic in Lafayette because I've got the solution. I can promise you I'm going to make Lafayette the most beautiful city in the world. But it's not just me up there. There's 9 of us. But one thing I can promise you is that I can be accessible and I can be approachable. I've always, in 32 years, always been involved in my community. I'm passionate and I'm excited about Lafayette. We leave town, we travel, we brag about Lafayette and can't wait to come back. As your councilwoman, you will see me out there. People ask, are you so exhausted from campaigning? No, because I love it. I'm always out there at events. I'm always at the horse farm. I'm always at Downtown Live, always at Rhythms on the River, always involved in nonprofit, civic organizations. You see me out there. I want to do this for my district. I want us to help plan for a better future. The school board elections last year were a huge game changer. Last year, 2 years ago, they couldn't even work together. They couldn't even place a vote. They couldn't move past anything. But if this year's school board showed us anything, is that they can work together. If you get the right people on the board who can work together, anything's possible. I hope to have your support October 24th. Liz Hebert, District 8. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hebert. Mr. Richard.
Well, people run for a lot of different reasons, and some run to make a difference. I run because I have to run to lose weight because that boudin crackling. I really lived the culture here. But in truth, I'm running for district council or for District 7 City Council in hope to be part of a solution to one of the greatest problems that any community could possibly have. Here's the problem. We're growing. It's growth. It's a good problem. The thing is, my mom used to tell me all the time, Bobby, don't grow too big for your britches. We have to be careful to focus on the right things. We have to prioritize the infrastructure. I think the greatest marketing tool that we have to promote our community is to ensure that we've got solid infrastructure. Make roadways the priority. So I say, number one, traffic must not just be another priority. It's got to become the priority. Secondly, I would say this, that we got to address this traffic without placing a greater tax burden on people. The average household income in Lafayette Parish is just over $47,000 a year. It's not fair to continue to go to people and ask them for more money. We've got to prioritize the budget in that way. And last is trajectory, meaning the goal for our community should be to continue to grow our economy without growing the government. What I want to do if I get elected, the first thing I hope to do, even if I have to raise some money to do it, is I'd love to see government be brought back to the people, even if it means that we got to take that big, the big high back chairs at City Council and the high stage and sort of lower it down to the floor and meet the people, right? I'd love to see something like that happen. Secondly, I think we need to verify the budget, find out where the elephants are, and address them. And lastly, reprioritize the budget to make the road.
Thank you,
the
Mr.
roadways a
Risha.
priority.
Thank you. Ms. Cook.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Not that you need it. Okay, I have to start off with the fact that I didn't realize my first minute would go so fast, and I did not mention my husband. I'm married 33 years. My husband is David, and I have 5 children. So I thought I needed to get that in there before the word got out. I didn't mention him at all, so sorry, David. Why am I running? Well, I'm running also to make a difference, as it says on the back of my shirts, by the way. But I'm really running because I love Lafayette. I have grown up here. Lafayette has been very good to me, to my family, to my children. 4 of them who live here still. Actually, one was in New York and came back and just moved back, which kind of, I definitely was excited about that. I still have one up in New York. So really, I feel like we need to take care of our city, not just for my children to return, but for all our children, because we raise our children to take off. We do. We raise them to grow and to fly away. And if they need to leave Lafayette for growth, we pack their bag and we send them on their way. But we need to be a community that can take them back in, because they come back with new ideas, new energy, and that is how we keep our city thriving. So in order to do that, we've got to take care of the problems that we have. And yes, problems are a result of growth, which is a great thing to have, but we have traffic issues. We want to make sure we keep public safety, top notch. We want to make sure that we keep our roads intact. We have several issues with roads, bridges. We heard a lot about that tonight. And those are things that we need to address first and take care of those things not just for us here, not just for you here, but for our future, for our children, for our kids. I teach, I love children, and as I look at my children that I teach, I realize that we, as the adults, the grown-ups here, we have to stop fighting, we have to stop bickering, we have to stop arguing amongst ourselves. We need to all work together so that this community can continue to grow for our children, for our future. And if we, communicate with each other, if, there are issues that come up, if we communicate with the public about what's going on with them, or so that everyone understands a little bit better what we're able to and what we're not able to do at the time.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Thank you, candidates, and good luck with your campaigns. Wait, excuse me, we're not done yet. We're still on the air.
When to talk, when to stop talking, and when to sit back down.
We're still on the air. We hope that you feel you can make a more informed decision about which candidate for City Parish Council District 7 and District 8 meets your expectations. Early voting begins on Saturday, October 10th, and runs through Saturday, October 17th. Election Day is Saturday, October 24th. Please verify your polling place, as some have recently changed. Thank you for watching. Spread the word about the final forum for the council candidates on Wednesday of this week for Districts 2 and 3. Thanks again to our timekeeper, the candidates, the League's Voter Service Committee, the University of Louisiana at Lafayette College of Liberal Arts, and AOC Community Media. Good night. Now you're done.
Is it October 24th?